Today's AskReddit post. What's something that just makes you go, who the fuck figured this out? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. Protamine sulfate is a drug used to reverse the effects of anticoagulants that are sometimes used during surgery. It was originally derived from salmon sperm. I know I could research the history, but it's more fun to imagine a team of doctors like, well, we tried everything else. Someone jerk off that fish and see if that does the trick. I saw a video of the process of making silk, and it's completely insane to me that humans somehow came up with a long list of really obscure steps to make fabric. Lotus silk just looks painful to harvest. Worm silk seems ducked on how they figured that one out. The worm silk isn't hard to understand. All it takes is some kid playing with an old cocoon and unraveling it and going, look, mom, I've got string. Coffee. Someone thought, this berry tastes horrible. Maybe if I pull the seed out, set it on fire for a little bit, then grind it up and run hot water through it, I can drink it. There's an Ethiopian legend that says a goat herder named Kaldi noticed his goats would become very energetic after eating the berries, and that's how humans first discovered coffee. This has been disproven. By the way, Ethiopian oral history is like comically overstated. They have stories for discover the mechanical gear, crop tilling, the bicycle, jet fuel, nuclear fusion, and AI large language models. That last is that a goat herder named Jerd wondered if you could talk to the internet and developed a startup. I know the answer, but cataloging mushrooms. This one killed Fred. This one makes you see God for 3 days. And this one tastes kinda like chicken. The answer was a lot of people. I think it starts with observing what animals eat. As someone on this post already said, if no animal dares to touch that specific mushroom, there is probably a reason for it. And when all the animals basically fight over a mushroom or seed, then the chances are high that you can eat it too without meeting God. Figuring out what is safe to eat, but animals won't touch it must have been a bit more trial and error though. Or rather, how much can you eat before it starts to hurt? Record players. Turning microskiggles on vinyl into perfect reproductions of people's voices and instruments? Like, WTF, is that witchcraft? Have you seen the Mythbusters episode where they test the myth that the earliest, though unintentional, recording was of Pompeius' explosion? Apparently they scribbled a record into drying clay. Lol, they also delve into how they work, and it's pretty intuitive once you understand how it works. The crazy thing is how they got so precise. How the mechanism under the needle on a sewing machine works to juggle the thread. That thing is just genius. The guy who figured out how to use addition in binary to let digital computers do subtraction. Veritasium on YouTube has a great video on sewing machine tech. I believe it's pretty recent, so sort by date. Anything to do with astronomy, mass of planets, distances of stars, locations of black holes. A lot of impressive brain power and technology went into all of this, I'm sure. Yeah. Whenever they are like, this planet 27 million light years from Earth rains diamonds from the atmosphere, I'm like, how do you know that? I can't even tell what my next door neighbor is doing in his backyard. MRIs. As a med student, I was briefly taught how these things work. And oh my god, how the hell did anyone think about this? As an MRI tech, it's really pretty amazing. All you're doing is exciting water molecules in your body's tissues with a big magnet, making them point the same way. And then when you turn the magnet off, how long it takes each molecule and the chemical releases as each molecule goes back to normal determines what kind of tissue it is. The computer reads this and displays the appropriate tissue on your screen depending on the minuscule differences in what it detects. And no radiation. Computing in general, like the idea of converting physical stimuli into code, is mind-blowing to me. Like actually building a machine that is able to interpret impulses, motion, light, etc. and turn it into a language that can interpret and execute tasks is really quite amazing. Same. I can wrap my head around coding in an established language. and I can wrap my head about yes and no functions doing simple operations. But I'll need to read a book or 5 to ever understand how tons and tons of yes/no commands can establish programming languages that eventually let me post this thought to the internet. It blows my mind. How wireless works and radios work. I have a solid understanding of wireless, security, networking, and everything that goes with it as an IT person for the last 25 years. The fact that my computer or cell phone can talk without any wires attached is magic. I've read about it, tried to understand, but how did someone figure this out? Boiling horses equals glue. Everything at home okay, Ralph? That one is pretty easy. You eat horse's meat and eventually wonder if hooves are edible. You put them on the fire, nothing. You dry them, nothing. You boil them, sticky. Cameras. How is it possible that some device is able to somehow capture the exact image it is pointed at with one click? I've been getting into analog film photography, and the chemistry that goes into making the films is insane. Genuinely, how the duck did they figure out which chemicals mixed in what combinations and temperatures would create the right colors? It's no wonder even at its peak only a handful of companies worldwide could mass produce color films. Contact lenses. It seems space age to me that there are these tiny flexible lenses I attach directly to my eyeballs every day to correct my vision. How the hell? Yes, I know, I can Google it. And originally were rigid, not soft lenses. Instead of putting on my glasses, I thought I might grind this piece of glass very thin and stick it directly to my eyeball. I still have the hard ones, but I feel like the last of the Mohicans. Which plants and animals were edible? Especially ones that are very poisonous if you aren't careful. For example, how many tries did it take to figure out that ripe kiwifruit pods are safe to eat, but that the seeds and skin are always poisonous, as are unripe kiwifruit pods? How many tries did it take to figure out how to safely eat pufferfish? Hitchhiker's Guide has a good line about this. Something to the effect of the point at which you start eating fruit on an alien planet is the point at which you will die if you don't. Doesn't really explain beer or cocaine. Dan Soder the other day said something like stuff like that required someone so dedicated to getting F********** ED up that they had to become good at science. I'm an applied mathematician with a PhD from a top tier school. Holy duck. I cannot even begin to imagine how these dudes 300 years ago cooked up math theory/tools that are commonly used now in applications that these people could never imagine. So far ahead of their time. Things like Fourier series, Galois theory, etc. Like read about Everest Galois. Super interesting. Created as a teenager. This profound theory then died in a duel because he was also a troublemaker. So yeah. Abnormal brains making breakthroughs that are light years ahead of beers. I remember reading about the creation of Bayesian statistics and how it wouldn't have any use for 150 years or something. That is incredible. I'm too stupid to understand how you even begin to formulate something that has absolutely no basis in the world you currently understand. Horse piss works as birth control. Wait, what? Exclamation mark. Yup. I've been to a farm that collects it. Ayahuasca is especially hard to believe. The root of one plant is a source of dimethyltryptamine, a powerful hallucinogen that is also produced by the brain under certain conditions. Drinking DMT, though, will not work. The body has enzymes that break DMT down when it is ingested. A completely unrelated plant has leaves that contain a compound that acts as an MAOI. It inhibits the enzyme that breaks down DMT. Consuming each plant on their own does nothing, but consuming both together results in a powerful psychedelic experience, and is a part of the religion of the natives. This is in the Amazon rainforest, where there is a mind-boggling diversity of plants and animals. Those two plants together are the only ones that would work to produce ayahuasca, apparently. When asked, the natives say the plants taught them how to do this. They lost a lot of good men in the pursuit of getting turned. The existence of computers? Those Methodicas really programmed in programming. physically. One of the earliest computers I used, Data General Nova 1200, loaded programs from paper tape. The operating system was on paper tape. To get the operating system loaded, you had to manually key in a short program using switches on the front panel. The program would read the paper tape and store its contents in memory. Once the paper tape with the operating system was loaded and running, you could then load other programs from tape. It was very cool technology at the time. Airplanes still make me scratch my head. I understand the concept. I understand the physics, but for the love of me, I still can't wrap my head around those things lifting up and going hundreds of miles per hour and then safely landing. It's magic. Pouring sugar on a prolapsed rectum will help it to shrink back inside. This one is the biggest WTF for me, edit. Also, how do you know this? Because I'm not going to look for a source on this one. I learned it from a vet. Had a prolapsed bearded dragon at work and this was the advice. Oysters, clams and mussels. What caveman saw a rock in the water, cracked it open, saw that was full of snot, and decided to try eating that? As with all of the food ones, a hungry one with butter and garlic. How to put color information into black and white television signals without ducking up black and white televisions. Amazing geniuses did that. How to switch FM transmissions from mono to stereo so mono receptors still get the whole song. Solution: instead of transmitting L and R, transmit L plus R for mono radios, and also LR in a diff frequency. Stereo radios get L by adding both signals, and dividing it by 2, and R by subtracting both signals. Alcohol distillation. Any kind of distillation really. Like the duckers who started boiling the gum oil beds and figuring out the different cuts of petroleum are incredible. As a PhD chemist / biochemist, I ask myself that question daily for years. It's absolutely amazing how much effort and advanced studies learned the detailed minutiae of molecules and the basics of life and chemical reactivity. It's truly eye-opening. In Australia there are no native plants that are hallucinogenic. The Aborigines figured out that if you combine 3 different plants, one of which is Australian willow, and smoke them, you can get high. None of the plants on their own, or combined with one of the others, have any effects. Do they grow near each other? I bet at one point there was a wildfire near where some Aborigines were, and they caught a buzz from it. Calculus. Like WTF. Newton was in lockdown during a pandemic. What did you do during your lockdown? Newton didn't have Wi-Fi. The glue used on Neanderthal / human spear points. It took a while to figure out how they did it, and it's not a simple process from the method we use. Can you please elaborate on how they did it? Don't leave us hanging like that, man. Audio speakers. I will never understand how a wire connected to a magnet creates sound with vibrations. I know, right? Metal thing makes human voice. It's magic and I will not be convinced otherwise. Bread. We take these seeds that are completely inedible, grind them into a super fine powder which is mixed with water and partially fermented. Then you bake it and end up with something nutritious and delicious. Skip any of those steps and you get something horrendous that makes your stomach hurt at best. I work it for a lab amazed at who discovered how to sequence DNA. I read it as the word it and just thought, oh how sassy. How to make chocolate. Look up the process. It's surprisingly complex. This is my answer as well. I understand how we got to all the technological stuff, which is just an ungodly amount of iterative improvements. But with those you always have a useful thing, or at least something where a path to usefulness is clearly visible. But making chocolate requires so many different steps and all the in-between results taste absolutely awful. I guess humans are just really stubborn when it comes to turning things into food. Can we all just take a moment to appreciate the groundbreaking intellect of the person who first decided to wear clothes? Pure genius. Me cold. Fur feel warm. Me put fur on me. Me warm. Fur don't stay. Me tie up fur on me. Me uncomfortable. Me modify it. Me is more comfortable. Me want same but better. Me made it better. Me wife want it, but cuter. Me wife made it cuter. Inductively coupled mass spectrometry, ICP-MS. Use it on a daily basis, but still sounds like science fiction when explained. Used to work at one of the companies that makes these machines. The ICP manuscript dude was given a shielded room after he used to make plasmas in free air, and the EMI would reboot computers in a 20-meter radius. Honey, somebody had to knowingly mess with a beehive without knowing they would get a reward. GPS, just genius. Microwave ovens. Some guy who was testing microwave equipment, I think it was some sort of military thing, noticed that a candy bar he had in his pocket melted. The rigging of sailing ships. CRISPR. I have thought long and hard about this one and I just cannot wrap my mind around it. Suppositories. Why don't we just shove these oversized pills up our assholes instead of swallowing them? I'd like to think that's how the conversation went. Peter, these suppositories taste awful. Mort, you ate them? Peter, sarcastically, no, I'm shoving them up my ass. I just had some training to learn how to weld. Every day I was in training I was low-key dumbfounded on how anybody figured any of the welding process out. Oh hey, let's just amp up the electricity so when this magic rod/wire touches metal we'll have an arc as bright as the sun and that'll probably melt some poop together. Some guy who hopefully had sunglasses with him. Well, arc welding did not come first. Before that, welding was done with a torch. It probably didn't take much thought to connect that an electrical arc, which at very high temperature would be a terrific heat source for welding. Natural gas piping. It's invisible, amorphous, and has no smell until it's added for safety, not to mention really dangerous if mishandled. That weird Nordic dish where you cover fish in lye and then let it sit for a year or two and getting high off Jenkum. I want to know how someone figured out after the MGM Lion and the Wizard of Oz roars to play Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and see what happens. I want to know how many movie/album matchups they tried before they found this one that works. Using intestines as sausage casing. That's how we got condoms to the originals were just pig intestines. The real innovator was the guy who figured out you could remove the rest of the pig. The process of taking iron ore out of the ground and turning it into steel. I work in a steel mill. Coffee, chocolate, olives, blue vein cheese, and the petrol combustion engine. Chocolate. Chocolate is a mint screw of taking something, splitting it apart, modifying the parts, then putting them back together. Like, what? Nuclear power. Magic rock go brrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr after all that magic with nuclear materials, ultimately what we do is boil water. Soap. Chemistry, as a field in its whole, but especially the history in the beginning. It's so insane that people figured so much out without being able to see or understand what's actually going on. But they have been able to write recipes and procedures to accurately achieve the desired outcome. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.